My name is Malik Watkins. I'm a 20-year-old student at Norfolk State University.
Hi, my name is Kiara Grimes. I go to Northern Virginia Community College, and I'm 18 years old.
My name is Preston Borden. I'm 18 years old. I'm going to the University of Virginia this fall.
I'm Cassidy Slaughter. I'm 19 and I attend Cornell University.
Hi, my name's Alex. I'm 22 and I'm a student at Piedmont Virginia Community College.
Hi, my name is Maya Mehdi. I'm 20 years old and I go to Virginia Tech.
My name is Natalie Carstetter. I am 21 years old and I am a student at Piedmont Virginia Community College.
Voting is important to me because it's one of the only ways in our democracy where I'm able to make sure my voice is directly heard by voting in candidates who, if not directly align with my beliefs, then at least support some of the same things I support.
I vote to expand opportunities for inclusive, representative, and progressive policies that will address the issues current and future generations have and will continue to face.
Voting is important to me because my family comes from a country where your voice doesn't matter and where the government goes as far as to silence opinions that they don't approve of. So to live in a country where there are systems in place to protect the people and protect their voices is so important to me.
Voting is important to me because it's my right. My ancestors fought for us to have it, and I should be using it. But more importantly, I understand that voting affects the everyday activities that surround my life in terms of financial aid from my institution or even public transportation, many things that affect me and many more people. It's important that we vote because those people who we're voting for mean all the difference. Even when you look at the summer 2020 movement, people neglect to realize that our Commonwealth's attorney, for instance, the state of Virginia, or even your attorney for wherever you are, is an elected position a lot of the times. And we just don't vote in it because it's not a presidential election. So it's important that we understand and utilize the importance of voting in every election because that's the only way we can hold our elected officials accountable.
Voting is important to me because it is a form of self-advocacy. It's a way of saying, I'm here and what I have to say is important. It's refusing to be ignored. I know, at least for me, that it can seem daunting going to the polls because sometimes it feels like my vote doesn't matter. But I don't think that's true. Our votes may feel insignificant at times, but if we look at the bigger picture, we will recognize that we aren't voting alone. When we cast our vote, our voices add to one voice made of many, all shouting out in unison that they will be heard. When we cast our vote, we are standing up not only for ourselves, but for others like us, saying, listen to us, hear us, our voice matters.
Recently, after I joined the league, our local members conducted a project where they went to local libraries and discovered the history of our local league. I found this greatly inspiring to see the record of meetings and the passion that every member put into fighting for more accessibility at the polls. When I was actually able to vote, I saw this as a way to not only exercise my own voice, but to also respect those who relentlessly fought for my right to exercise my voice. And this is what voting means to me.
Voting is important to me because it is one of the only ways a normal everyday person is able to have their voice heard by the most powerful and influential people in our country. Voting is meant to be the great equalizer. No matter where you're from, how much money you make, or how far along in life you are, your vote means just as much as the next person does. There is meant to be no room for discrepancy and only room for equality and one's right to let his or her representative know exactly what he or she wants from them.
2020 to me highlighted as clearly as ever that a lot of the things most Americans take for granted, like justice, representation, and access to the democratic process, are all dangerously fragile. And the effort to perpetuate the status quo is a determined one.
The social justice movement of the summer of 2020 ignited a lot of hope in me because I saw people who were exactly like me and also people who were completely different from me all fight for the same cause. And not only did they unite for a single cause, but the cause was to make people's voices heard even if they were different from their own.
Last summer was a wake-up call for our country. What happened to George Floyd was inhumane and completely preventable. That said, as long as the majority remains passive and inactive, things won't change. The fact of the matter is that tragedies like what happened to Floyd have been happening in this country for a long time now. And until we start holding and continue to hold the government and the people involved accountable, it won't get any better. Voting is a way of assuring that the minority is heard and included, and minority representation is important because it asserts and affirms that those voices carry weight, that they matter. The events that unfolded in the summer of 2020 brought to light an ugly reality. And the reality is our systems are greatly flawed and that those in power have been grossly negligent. If we want to change the system, then we as citizens must be brave enough to face this reality. And it starts by holding ourselves and our government accountable.
Unfortunately, I was not able to vote in the 2020 election because I was 18 at the time, but I was on social media a lot, so I was able to find out what was happening relating to voting rights, civic engagement, and other issues involving representation in the civic sphere. Stacey Abrams was a huge name around that time, I'm sure. Her work in Georgia, and I believe a couple of other states as well, if not directly, then just, through her own work, was really amazing. She helped thousands and thousands of minorities, specifically Black people, register to vote and eventually vote in the 2020 election, which led to its amazing results. I think what she did and what others have done before her and continue to do is really important for fighting for voting rights and giving representation. Gerrymandering, voter suppression, even lobbying a little bit too, are huge, huge, huge barriers to proper representation in our laws, in our Congress, in what color we choose our states to be through majority vote. And if we fix those issues, we will have a more inclusive democracy.
Last summer was the boiling over of tension between two groups that resulted in what we saw last year. We are still seeing those effects across our nation currently as well. Last summer showed us that we as Americans are still not all treated equally, and that we will continue to fight for our right to equality. Last year also showed us the power that normal people have when their voices are amplified over the channels of today on the internet. The internet gives the voiceless a voice and the powerless a platform, for good or for bad.
Unfortunately, it is extremely commonplace for people to pretend like they care while simply just throwing around terms and not actually applying them to advocacy. I think it is important, it is essential to make sure that our work is intersectional and does not favor a select few. These protests really help me discover what privilege means to me and make sure that I'm not acting in exploitative ways, and to not talk over disenfranchised groups, especially when discovering what legislation needs to be advocated for and simply individual actions that we can do to fight racism in our communities.
In the future, I plan to make sure that I vote in every election. I already do, but to continue to do that. Volunteer where I can, whether it's knocking doors, doing mail drops, whatever the case may be, and then making sure in the entire process I'm bringing someone along with me, and they bring someone with them as well. Instead of just me going to the polls, 2 or 3 people should be going with me to the polls, because once we make it a movement, once we realize that we had that power that we did in the summer of 2020, we're going to be unstoppable.
I plan to work within my community and campus to make sure that people know their rights and people know that they have tools and resources to make active change in their communities and establish systems of support within those communities as well.
In the future, I plan to join grassroots political organizations and possibly run for political office when I'm older.
Now and in the future, I intend to get involved and be an active participant within my community. Getting involved requires interaction and discussion. Discussion not only with people who already agree with you, but also discussion with those who disagree with you. But action without discussion is careless, and discussion without action is purposeless. To ensure that my voice is heard, I will aim to have purpose-driven discussion with those who agree with me as well as those who don't, because I believe that systematic change is a group project, and that if we want to be a part of the solution, then we must learn to work together for our country and her people.
By advocating for fair access to the democratic process, combating efforts to further disenfranchise marginalized voters, and by engaging first-time voters with the process.
People are constantly talked over when every voice is essential in problem solving and decision making in communities. I believe that it is extremely important to make sure that I am collaborating with others, because other people are all experts in their own ways. I believe in the process for ensuring that my own voice is heard really relies on listening and finding the ways that I can improve and fight for my own rights, but also seek the needs of others.
Vote, of course. That's the main thing anyone can do to make sure their voice is heard, either locally, statewide, or even nationally. Protesting is also a huge one. These are just little things that we often overlook that are literally our right and written to our Constitution as people living in this country, and we have to use them. It's incredibly important.
Vote and make your voice heard.
Vote and make your voice heard.
Be sure to vote and make your voice heard.
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 Vote and make your voice heard.